to We Need to Talk. Today is episode 3, I believe. And trust me, it has been a trip trying to get y'all episode 3. There has literally been so much technical difficulty. I'm literally using my iPad for the microphone right now because the microphone won't connect. And then the backup microphones are dead. And this is my 3rd time, I believe, trying to record this podcast episode. And I was just like, you know what? We're going to work with what we have right now because I feel like this podcast episode is cursed. And I don't want to feed into that negativity. So we're going to record it how it is. So, welcome. Today, we're talking about burnout. I'm your host, Simone, and I'm a counseling psychologist, and today we're talking about burnout. And believe me, this one hits home for me. This topic hits home for me because I've personally experienced burnout, and it is not a walk in the park. I've had severe burnout before, and I honestly feel like right now I'm feeling a lot of burnout. So even filming this and going through the trials and errors and the trying to film it 3 times and the pushing myself, and now there's so much noise outside for whatever reason, it's just like I'm so exhausted that I just want to push through and get this out for you guys. So burnout. Now I know that usually when people hear about burnout, they're like, oh, I don't really deal with burnout. I just get tired, or I'm really tired all the time, but they don't really consider it burnout. Burnout is not just tiredness, and we'll get to that in a bit about how it's not just tiredness, but burnout comes with a lot of other symptoms. Like for me, it comes with brain fog and like a haziness of like, I can sit there and you could be talking to me and I just feel so exhausted that listening to you is exhausting. I'm emotionally and physically and mentally just drained. So I don't even have anything else in me to listen to the conversation. And I might really want to talk to this person, but I just don't have the energy for it. So I can kind of just like zone out, or just feel like if there's a cloud over everything that's happening, it's hard for me to process what people are saying, because sometimes it's just like I'm so tired, it takes a second to hear what you just said to me, and then I'm trying to process what you just said to me, so then it takes the conversation longer and people get frustrated with you. And it can also come with confusion, or just feeling like I want my body to do certain things. Like I just started running, and with burnout I worked my way up to about week 7 in running, and I was eating right, drinking water, taking vitamins, doing all the things, protein, doing the things. And then I had a 25-minute run that I was supposed to do, and I literally felt like if it was going to be the death of me. I truly didn't know how I was going to complete this run. And it wasn't just physical exhaustion, because I hadn't done anything the entire day. It was more of like a mental exhaustion of and running it to me is a really mental thing that you have to like push past the doubt in your mind, the conversations in your mind, the negativity. So being like, okay, I'm going to do this, I can do this. No. With burnout, it was like, I don't want to do this. I dread this. And usually there's dread with running, because everyone who runs will tell you that. Even though somehow you find yourself running, you always kind of go back and you're like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to run. But with burnout, it literally feels worse to me. It feels like if at any point I just want to stop and I'm done, and I just want to give up on life, give up on all of the things that are happening. And that's not, like, I can usually fight through that to some extent. Like, of course there are bad days where you just want to stop, but with burnout, it feels like if you can't get there. So let's talk a little bit more about the symptoms, and I'm gonna look down so that I can perfectly try to get you some actual definitions of it, or ways that you could probably relate to the burnout. So brain fog. Have you ever walked into a room, completely forgotten why you were there, or struggled to remember things you know you should know? That's brain fog, a classic symptom of burnout. Like emotional exhaustion. You feel drained all the time, not just physically, even thinking about work or certain responsibilities. You can feel overwhelmed, or irritability and detachment. Things that didn't matter before now you make you scream. You might find yourself snapping at people for small things, or feeling disconnected from loved ones. Decreased performance and motivation. You're thinking twice as hard, but achieving half as much. It's like running on a hamster wheel and getting nowhere. So with these symptoms that I just got, some of the symptoms, there's so many other symptoms. Even when I'm reading it, sometimes I think about depression or anxiety, and a lot of these symptoms feel like, oh, these are things that you just feel when you're depressed, like the emotional exhaustion or the irritability. But it's not quite the same for me personally with brain fog. It's almost as though you have the desire. With depression, it feels like if you don't have the motivation or the desire to do any of the things that you once were doing. But with brain fog, it feels, not just brain fog, burnout. It feels as though you want to do it. Just like I was saying about the running. You want to get out there and do what you were training for, do what you were planning, go to work, get the tasks done. And it feels like if you're trudging through mud to get them done, and you're not even getting anywhere close to what you'd usually be able to get done. Like emotionally being exhausted to the point where you can go to sleep for hours. You can think, okay, I'm tired, maybe I just need a day off, maybe I just need to take Saturday or Sunday to just sleep and rest. And then when you wake up, you're still tired. It's just dreading the next day and being like, I don't have the energy for this. And it doesn't matter if you take vitamins, it doesn't matter if you drink water and you got that sleep or you got that rest. It literally just feels like I could sleep for 24 hours and still not feel rested. And that's what burnout is. And sometimes I know we really feel like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I have so much on my plate. I don't have time to be burnt out, or I don't have time to be exhausted. I just have this, and then when this is done, I'll be over it. But let me tell you something. Burnout doesn't care. It really doesn't care if you have bills. It doesn't care if you have important meetings or an important project. Burnout will knock you down. And that brings me to my personal story with burnout. So when I was doing my internship at UE to get my master's to become a psychologist, I had the worst burnout I've ever had. I'd never had burnout before this, like acknowledged burnout before this, but this was the worst. So I experienced a lot of traumas during that time. Like a lot of things around me were happening. People were getting sick, people were getting hurt, people were dying, etc. So like personally in my life, and it just felt like one thing after another, and I was trying to push myself to be going to school and taking the classes that I needed to take, and still go to my internship program and be there every single day and give of my best. I'm a perfectionist, so I wanted it to go perfectly. I wanted to get all the hours that I had to get. I wanted to do all of the group sessions and do all of the notes and watch all of the videos and get all of the information, because the environment that I got put in for my internship was a very heavy environment, and you had to learn a lot of information about it. It wasn't just what we learned at school. And that typically is how it is for internship. You don't go and know everything that's there. But I felt specifically like this topic area I didn't even like in school, and I got placed in this environment, and I felt like I was now hands-on with all of the clients that were suffering with various things, and it just felt like a lot. But you had to deal with personalities, you had to deal with safety, you had to deal with family members, you had to deal with being on site, doing certain things a certain way, their procedure. There's all these different forms that you have to fill out, and making sure all of that runs smoothly. And I feel like they were very understaffed. I'm really sorry about the noise today, guys, but there's nothing I can do about it. So I feel like they were really understaffed, and it was really hard to watch all of it, and I felt like I just had to say yes, 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 and just give and give and give and give and give. But the issue was there was so much going on in my personal life, and I was just trying to push through, and I was trying to do school, and I wasn't allowing my body, wasn't allowing my mind to really process the trauma that I was going through, and I wasn't giving myself the rest. I wasn't doing the self-care. I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't being good to myself. I got burnt out real quick, and I tried to push through because I was just like, it's just exhaustion. I'm just going into the workforce, and therefore that just means that I'm getting accustomed to being a working woman and doing a 9 to 5. And clearly, if I'm going to be doing a 9 to 5, then this is just how it feels. But truly, that's not just how it feels. It felt like if I was failing constantly, and I would just go to work and I would dread it. I would get there and I would just be like, when is this day gonna end? Because I can't do this. I do not have it in me to do this. I don't want to hear anything about what people are struggling with. I don't want to help people. I was no longer myself. It was just a haze of every day was whatever it was. Last year there were fights or arguments or issues that you had to deal with on a compound, and it would just be like another day of like, oh my goodness, when will this end? Why is it another thing on top of another thing on top of another thing? And even with colleagues or like mentors or supervisors, I would literally just go to lunch and I wouldn't want to hear, because there was obviously a lunchroom. Well, not obviously, but there was a lunchroom. So I would go into the lunchroom and I just wouldn't want to hear any of them talking. But I shared an office with another intern, and he was using the office as like his space to do whatever other things that he had to do during lunchtime. So he was talking just as much as the people in the lunchroom. So it felt like if there was no space for me to go, and I was then just kind of forced to be in the space of everyone talking and laughing. And I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted them to get to know my person. I wanted them to get to know my personality. I wanted them to understand me and to really be a part of the environment I experienced the experience. But at the same time, it felt like I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle anymore. I didn't want to hear any of it. I didn't want to be a part of any of it. I just wanted to be alone and to be shut away from the world and to cry, honestly. I really and truly just wanted to cry most of the time. So I'd get home and I would just cry. And then I'd have to suck it up and do whatever classes I had to do. But then it got to a point where I couldn't suck it up anymore. And I would cry at work. I would just try to use my supervisor's office, and I would just say, okay, when you're not using the space, I would like to use the space. I just need a moment to breathe. And he could tell that I was getting burnt out and kept telling me that I was getting burnt out. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I could push through, I'm fine. everything is going to be great, everything is going to be fine. And I was like, not listening to him warning me that I was burnt out, and if I didn't listen to the burnout, my body was going to shut down itself. And I would just show up and I would cry. I'd cry every day, or like every other day. And I'm not the person that wants anybody to see me crying. I would just be like, I couldn't control it anymore. There was one moment where something had happened on compound and I had to rush into the office just to cry. And previously that wouldn't have affected me, it wouldn't have bothered me, it wouldn't have fazed me. But because I was in such a fragile state, I automatically just wanted to bawl my eyes out. And I did. I bawled my eyes out. And then I tried to compose myself, and I'd find myself just not being okay and just struggling to cope. And I probably looked like just a shell of myself. And eventually my supervisor and a higher up in the company was like, okay, you need to take some time because you're not of any help to yourself, and therefore you can't be of any help to anybody. And that felt like pure failure. That felt like I lost. But I understood it because I was just getting angry with the other intern that was there, because it was just like, okay, I don't want to hear your voice, you're irritating me, you're not doing things the way I would do them, you're not being perfect like me. Like, I wasn't saying this to this person, I didn't say anything about it to this person, but inside of my head I was just feeling this hate, this vengefulness, and it had nothing to do with the person. It had nothing to do with who they are, how they are. I just was so irritated and just in a bad place, and all the crying, and it was getting to a point where I could no longer say, I'll be fine, I'll be okay. And when they brought it up and they were talking about it's okay to not be okay, you don't have to be perfect all the time, and I felt that failure, it was just like, how am I going to finish? How am I going to get the hours I need to get? How am I going to end the program with all the people that I entered the program with? And trust me, like, having a setback where you enter the program with a certain set of people and having to be behind them is such an embarrassing thing. I shouldn't say it's an embarrassing thing. It feels embarrassing. It shouldn't be embarrassing. In the Caribbean, we push ourselves to be perfect all the time and to be going at the same pace as everybody else that's our age, etc. But the truth is, everybody learns at different rates. Everybody handles things at different rates. And we can't control when traumas happen to us. We can't control when bad things happen to us. So it's not like if we were to say, oh, everyone is dealt the same cards and everybody has even playing field and it's all great and fine and dandy, so all we need to do is keep going and you're just a failure. It's literally like random things happen to random people, and sometimes you're just not capable in that moment of completing it at the same time as other people, and that doesn't make you any less than. I still have my degree. I still finished with a distinction. And I was so proud of myself because it was just like I was still able to get the level of excellence that I wanted for myself as some of my friends. And I was embarrassed and ashamed at the fact that I had to take longer to get those, because I had to take a 6-month break from my internship because I literally just couldn't handle it anymore. There was too much going on in my personal life and I couldn't fake it. I couldn't pretend. I was so burnt out from everything, from trying to do at-home life and do work life and do school life, that it just wasn't working. And the fatigue hit, the exhaustion hit, and then I was just getting sick all the time. Like, my body was literally shutting down on me until the point where I just slept. Like, the first week of being on vacation after stopping because of the burnout, I was probably just sleeping, barely eating anything, just sleeping. And I also felt like if I was empty, it felt like I was wasting time. It felt like if I should be doing something. And that's why I think talking about mental health and talking about self-care and talking about these things are so important, because in that moment I felt so alone. I felt like if I had no one and no one understood what was going on. But burnout is so common. It's literally so common. There's so many people who get illnesses because they've been burnout and pushing themselves and stressing themselves. And it's not just simply stress. Like, we're taking stress to a whole other level and being like, oh, I'm just stressed out, or oh, I'm just tired. But that's not what it is. You are literally not functioning as well. And then we say, okay, well, my employer doesn't care if I'm burnt out. They're still gonna need me to finish X, Y, and Z. But truth be told, when they finish, whether you finish it or not, they're gonna get somebody to finish it. And if you pass away, if you get sick and can't do it, if you quit, they're gonna have somebody finish it. So you have to value yourself. You have to find your self-worth and be like, okay, I'm really and truly not going to allow this to take over my life and to harm me. Because at this point, we're harming ourselves if we're just letting the stress, the fatigue, the exhaustion just take this toll on us. Oh, it's just a lot on my plate, or I'm just tired, it's nothing serious, I can't be burnt out, I love my job. Burnout is for people who can't handle stress. And you look at it and you think, oh, I'm not weak, I can't be burnt out. You can love something so much and put so much work into it and put so much effort into it. But if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not resting, if you're not exercising, if you're not meditating or getting your mind to calm down, if you're not doing the things that you love, if you're not having your hobbies, if you're not going to the beach, if you're not skiing, if you're not skating, if you're not dancing, if you're not anything that pretty much just brings you joy and replenishes you, then you're literally just giving out of your cup, giving out of your cup, giving out of your cup. And eventually your cup is going to be empty and there's going to be nothing left to give. And if there's nothing left to give, then obviously you're literally just going to shut down. You can't give from an empty cup. And we often don't like to hear that, and we don't want to think that that's happening to us, but it is happening. And you have to acknowledge it, because your body will make you acknowledge it. That is such a key point of burnout. People are just like, okay, I can be burned out. And when they want to acknowledge it, be like, all right, fine, I'm burnt out. No problem. No problem. But I'm still not going to take any time off of work. I can't afford to take any time off of work. There's so much things I have to do, especially if you're self-employed. Me, like right now, I'm feeling so burnt out, and in the back of my head is like, I have bills to pay. I'm not working for anybody. I'm not getting sick leave. I have to figure out how to get this stuff done. I don't have time to be burnt out. I have to figure this out now. But I have to stop myself and say, okay, well, there's not going to be anybody to figure it out. If I don't stop and figure it out, no. My body will shut down and it will collapse on me. And I hate when you go through mental health and it feels like if your body is failing you. And I understand that feeling. I understand the feeling of failure. I understand wanting to push through, and sometimes just being like, well, I don't have another option. No one will take care of me. No one else is going to help me. How am I going to get through this if I just take a break or if I give up? But you're not giving up. You're literally just choosing you. And sometimes we have to choose ourselves, and we have to put ourselves first. And self-care. I also wanted to mention, I know that some people say You don't understand. I don't have the time to be burnt out. I'm not being lazy. I just have a lot going on. I'll rest when this project is over, like I just mentioned. But no one is invincible. No one is invincible. Burnout doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're rich. It doesn't matter if you're poor. It doesn't matter if you're self-employed. It doesn't matter if you're an employee. It doesn't matter who you are. Mental health will get you. No matter who you are. I just sound like if it's like the boogeyman. But I'm being serious. Mental health doesn't discriminate. Mental illnesses don't discriminate. And you often can't tell what they look like on people. Some people can be severely burnt out, but you think that they're functioning enough to get you whatever you're asking them for. And now I'm kind of talking to employers and noting you can't keep asking employees to be perfect and to dish out unrealistic goals and tasks, because they need the moments to rest. And sometimes when people have vacation, they're spending that vacation catching up on other things that they had to put on the wayside because they were too busy with being employed and trying to get those tasks done. So their vacation is not even vacation, and you're constantly trying to catch up and 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 catch up on things that you've missed, or things that have just piled up. And the other day I was telling someone, like, we have to kind of stop with the, oh, this is piling up and I have to catch up on this and I have to catch up on that. At some point we just have to end that goal and start a new one. And I know that sounds easy, or it sounds like, oh, that's not really like plausible or realistic, but it is. And it has to be, because you can set goals for yourself. Sky's the limit. But knowing that you're not going to hit the sky every single time is another thing that we have to accept and say that's okay. Especially in the Caribbean, we have to say it's okay. I'm not a failure. I'm not less than. I'm not lazy. I'm not worthless. I'm not... Like, I can still be something. Anywhere around the world, really. Like, I can still be something even if I'm not being the most productive right now, because I am being productive in a different sense of taking care of myself. And we have to stop being so afraid of, oh, if I am failing, if I am not being as productive, then people are just gonna undervalue me, kind of forget about me, pass me over, find somebody else. And if you have to constantly be worrying about somebody finding somebody else, that's not right for you. That's not a place for you. I know that a lot of AI and robot stuff is replacing a lot of jobs in the work field, but it's almost not really worth it to try to compete with it, because if it's gonna take over, then it's gonna take over anyway. What's the point of me killing myself and stressing myself and giving myself all sorts of physical illnesses, mental illnesses, in order to keep up with something that I know that I can't keep up with? What's the actual point of that if I know that that's the end goal anyway? So let's do a little Q&A about burnout, because I know that there's some misconceptions, like how I started at the beginning saying, what's the difference between being tired and burnt out? Burnt out is more than just being tired. Burnout is a chronic state of stress that leads to physical and emotional exhaustion, detachment, and feelings of ineffectiveness. It's like trying to run a marathon with no end in sight. You want to keep going and going, just like I said, catch up on all the things and keep trying to catch up and trying to catch up. But there is no catch up. There is no, I'll finish this task. Because often when you're like, oh, I have to catch up on all the chores and I have to catch up, and then you finally get to that last chore, you've been putting aside something else that you also needed to catch up on, and it feels like this never-ending loop and cycle that you're just trying to do these things, and it feels like if you can't do all these things at the same time, so then you just end up compartmentalizing one and saying, I'll do that later and I'll catch up on that later, catch up on this thing over here, and then you have to go back and catch up on that, and it's like never ending. It's all just going and going and going and going and looping and looping and looping. And then the next question is, who's at risk of tiredness? You can sleep. Just fatigue, you can sleep, you can get vitamins, you can rest your mind, rest your body, and then you're not tired anymore. But it's not to the same level of exhaustion as burnout is. Question 2, who is at risk for burnout? And as I said, burnout does not discriminate. Anybody can get burnout. Common people who get burnout are highly motivated perfectionists, and those in high pressure jobs. Caregivers, teachers, healthcare workers, and even parents are all at high risk. If you're constantly giving and rarely taking time to recharge, burnout can sneak up on you. And I laughed because I literally just called myself a perfectionist, especially when I was doing my internship, and that hits home. If you're constantly giving and you're not taking time for yourself, and you're not trying to replenish, you're not trying to recuperate, you're not trying to give your body what it needs, then burnout will surely happen to you. And if you're working multiple jobs and you're saying, oh no, I don't have time to eat, I don't have time to do this, I'm barely sleeping, and then just going to the next job, and I'm eating something quick and it's not nourishing to your body, the burnout will catch up to you, and it will force you to have to take the time to fix that so that you can function, so that you can fuel yourself, so that you can feel better. Question 3, who should take burnout seriously? Because burnout isn't just about being tired or stressed. It can lead to serious physical and mental health issues like depression, anxiety, even cardiovascular problems. Burnout can literally start to affect everything. You can start to have strokes, you can have heart problems, I don't want to say burnout is a direct lead for cancer, because that could be literally an incorrect statement. But I will say you can get the cold and the flu because your immune system is down when you're fighting to do too many things, and you're not taking care of your body right, and you're not getting your vitamins, and you're not doing the things to help your body function or giving yourself the nutrients. Anything can attack your nervous system. Anything can attack any part of your body because it's weak at that point in time. So it can cause physical problems, it can cause illnesses that aren't typically mental illnesses, and then on top of that, much easier to cause mental illnesses that may be temporary, kind of, or maybe long lasting. Temporary in the sense of like 6 months that you're dealing with these things. Like how I said, I had to take 6 months off. Or it can literally just keep pushing you to have to stop over and over because you're not listening to your body. What are the signs that you should pay attention to or look for when there's burnout? Changes in your mood or behavior. So feeling like if you're irritable or detached or just struggling to concentrate, like we were talking about the brain fog and the haziness and the irritability and the detachment from situations and not wanting to be around people or things that usually bring you joy, and you're motivated to want to go to these places, but it kind of feels like if going to those places are now draining you, Um, Physical symptoms can be like headaches, stomach aches, constant fatigue, your body just getting sick. Yeah. And I want to reiterate the point I was making about burnout in the Caribbean and just saying push through and saying you're too blessed to be stressed, or you're okay, you're fine, you're just a little bit tired, you'll be fine, you're okay. And while that can be positive and not trying to push people to feel like if they're failing, it can also just not be acknowledging what's really going on with the person. And it's necessary to acknowledge what's going on with the person, because if you're burnt out, lots of things can happen, as we just spoke about, because of that. And we really need to take the time to look at mental health, because people are harming themselves, people are ending their lives, people are ending each other's lives, people are just not functioning, and the world is getting more violent and scary, and also just a harder place to be in, and people are struggling a lot more, and they're not sharing, and we're not paying attention, and until it's too late, really. And it's really bad that we glorify this, oh, you just have to persevere and you just have to push through it. And there's one thing about being disciplined and pushing through to get a job done and not just giving up easily and having work ethic. But then there's also just pushing yourself to a point where you're no longer healthy. It's an unhealthy way to push yourself, and recognizing that it's not failure to call a timeout, basically, and to take care of yourself and to acknowledge your limits and understand your limits and understand that you're a human and you can't keep going and going and going and going like a machine. If you're experiencing burnout, I do really strongly advise that you take some time, you seek some help, and you talk about it, you share about it, you find the things that help you. So my usual tips for burnout for myself are just finding things that replenish me. So if taking the time to sleep some more and rest some more is helpful to me, then I'll do that. If coloring or being creative, like painting, doing yoga, going to the beach, swimming, dancing, playing tennis, running, if you find those things to give you some joy, some peace, fill your cup more, then do those things. Take some time to just do those things, not just putting it in addition, but slowing down and taking the time to say, okay, I'm not going to push myself to the brink of death or to death just so that I can finish these items. Maybe for a week, for a couple days, for a couple hours, just taking the time to keep refilling your cup, self-care, so that you can keep functioning, so that you can avoid burnout or even deal with burnout if you are already struggling with burnout. Burnout can happen to anyone, and it's okay to admit that you're not okay. It's fine to not be okay. It's okay to take some time and to get back to that okay state. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're incapable. It just means that you're a human being. You're not weak. You're not incapable. You're just a human being. And human beings struggle, and we need each other, and we need to come together to help one another, especially during times where mental illness is a huge issue. Mental struggle is a huge issue. So, thanks for tuning in to today's episode about burnout. I just wanted to give you a more personal one because, one, it's an early episode and I want you to get to know me a little bit better. I wanted to share a personal story. I wanted to share something that I'm struggling with currently to give you some relatability, for you to open up and start to share about things that you are struggling with. Remember, if you want to share any of your stories, you can contact us at Phoenix Counseling Services, bds@gmail.com. If you need a session, if you just want to share your story for the podcast, you can do so. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I hope this conversation was insightful. I hope that you know a little bit more about burnout now and that you take it a little bit more seriously. These topics are just dibbles and dabbles on like conversations that need to start with things that we need to talk about. And if you have anything to share, to add, please comment down below. Please send a message, share a message, share with people, comment, subscribe, like, and I'll see you next week.